everyone, and I hope you're staying sane throughout Mercury retrograde. So if you've been following me on Instagram, you would have been seeing my posts, especially this upcoming week. Drive very, very carefully. Think twice before you send any emails or messages, particularly if they're angry. There's just a lot of communication and travel issues this week, so leave as much time as you can before anything, and take a breath before you say anything you might regret later on. So this week we are talking about some of the outer planets. So of course we've talked about the personal planets for the last couple of weeks, which is Mars and Mercury and Venus and the Moon and that type of thing. The outer planets are the slower moving planets, so this can take anywhere from 11 months up until 27 years to travel through a sign. So these are the big external life-changing experiences that come into our lives. So this is when the rest of the world comes to meet us, basically, throughout the outer planets. So we're going to start this week by talking about Jupiter, Saturn, and then Chiron as well. Now Chiron is a asteroid, and for a lot of you who I know are entrepreneurs or self-employed in some way, Chiron is really, really important. So we'll start with Jupiter, and Jupiter is also known as Zeus, and of course he is king of the gods in mythology. So what this means for us, and of course Jupiter is the giant planet. He's called the gas giant in in terms of the solar system. So in astrology, Jupiter represents excess and expansion and success and all things big and fantastic. So wisdom, but also luck. So where we have the opportunity for things to just double and expand. So next week when we talk about aspects, we will have a look at your Jupiter aspects, and anything that Jupiter influences in your chart is a major significant issue. However, Jupiter is really, really important, especially if you're self-employed, because this shows you where you can bring money into your life. Because of course we can't survive off air and water. We do need resources. So although we live our life's path, our work is to help other people, Jupiter shows us where we can make money in excess, where we can have abundance and appreciation, all those sorts of things, because it is an abundant universe. So when you activate your Jupiter, this is how you can attract money, and you can attract financing, you can attract funding, you can attract help or an audience or all those sorts of things. So check out the sign, of course, in the house of your Jupiter. He also rules luck, but luck is a really interesting thing, because luck is something that we work hard for. People tend to say when you get something, oh, you're really lucky, but they don't see all the work that went in up until that point. And luck is simply working towards something but letting go of the outcome. So, if you buy a lottery ticket every single day of the year, statistically, you'll probably win the lottery. And yes, it's luck, but you've also worked at getting that lottery ticket every day. So if you put effort into yourself, and especially into the area where Jupiter is in your chart, this is an area that you will get lucky. Someone will notice your work. Someone will reward your work. Where you meet people that are generous, who want to support you. So if you do want more friends, you want people who appreciate you, you want a positive audience for your work, your Jupiter is where and how you need to activate. And so of course, like I said, this rules money as well, because money is a resource, and the best way to bring money in is not necessarily to spend money, but to keep it moving, because it's an energy. So Jupiter is where we have to be wise and where we have to be generous. It's not just where we build and we build and we build, because Jupiter also rules excess and greed. And if you've ever had issues around eating, around weight, comfort behaviors, Jupiter is a really important planet to look at, because this can also show us where things can get blown out of proportion sometimes. So, people that have Jupiter in the 6th house or the 5th house even are often more likely to have problems with eating or problems with weight, because, their diet is so deeply connected to another part of their life. So while it rules things that just happen to us out of luck, It also rules excesses of all kinds. So it talks about being mindful of where we put our energy, because Jupiter is so energetic and expansive. So if we put our energy into ourselves and into bettering ourselves and into keeping our money moving, investing in companies we believe in, investing in causes we believe in, doing random acts of kindness, those things will be paid back to us in the area of our Jupiter. So if there's nothing doing in the area of your Jupiter, this is what you need to activate to increase your financial abundance and also your generosity of spirit and heart, because our lessons around the heart don't just come from the emotional planets, you know, the moon and Venus. They come from Jupiter, which is about how much can we give. It's not just how much can we receive, which is a lot when we activate our Jupiter, but how much can we give to others. So this is an area in life in which we are called to be generous. So if your Jupiter is in the 10th house, of course, which is about the audience and PR and the rest of the world, you can help people be seen and be visible. So you'd be a fantastic advocate. And then, you know, you might end up with a book deal or with a media deal or something that would put you in the public eye. And that's how you keep the spirit of Jupiter alive in your life, and you keep money moving, and you keep your audience coming in, and, you know, and luck working in your life. The saying that goes with Jupiter is from Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey. And it says, if you take one step towards the gods, they take 10 steps towards you. So the area that Jupiter is in your life is where you need to always take that one step, and you'll be paid back in tenfold. So it also talks about where we are particularly tolerant. So like I said, especially around food, around weight, around gambling, even around shopping. So wherever Jupiter touches is excess, which is fantastic. But these are also the areas of our lives that can sometimes be touched by addictive behaviors or compulsive behaviors. So I'll talk a little bit about Neptune next week, which is also an addictive planet. But if you have those issues and you feel like, okay, this relates to my Jupiter, like I said, you can channel this into moving that energy in a different way, because Jupiter asks us to take conscious steps with our energy, with our money, with what we put into our bodies, with anything that fuels us. Of course, it is that gas giant. It is always moving. It's always orbiting. It is so expansive. So, you know, if we channel that energy into healthy eating or into self-care or into volunteering or things that are good, it repays us so much. The benefits are, you know, beyond tangible. So Jupiter is a really exciting planet to bring luck and money and abundance in, but the key is always to be conscious of where you put your energy in that area. So Saturn is what we call Father Time in astrology. He is the slow-moving planet. He takes around 2 years, 2.5 years in a sign. And Saturn is also called Kronos, and he rules time and he rules the father. So of course he also rules the patriarchy. He rules karma in sense of lessons and responsibilities and also restriction. So how do you work your Saturn or experience your Saturn? A lot of people experience their Saturn, especially in early life and up to the age of 29, as a set of expectations or sometimes restrictions. If you have an aspect in your aspect list between Neptune and Saturn or between Moon and Saturn, depression is really common, because Saturn is heavy. It's heavy energy. It's a sense of responsibility we can't necessarily feel that we fulfill, or it's feeling like we don't live up to expectations, or it's a feeling of disappointment or disillusionment. So Saturn can be a hard planet. He is a taskmaster. And so this can be an area of your life in which there are restrictions. A lot of women with Saturn in the 5th house have trouble conceiving or have difficulties around children. A lot of people with Saturn in the 7th house have had some really tough lessons through relationship. A lot of people with Saturn in the 1st house had to grow up very quickly and had to take on that mantle of being an adult when they were only a child. So Saturn can be a source of pain, absolutely. It can be a source of where we have been restricted or we haven't been able to express ourselves in some way. Saturn and Mercury aspects tend to show up in problems speaking up, especially as a child. There can be things like dyslexia, problems at school, problems asserting ourselves, you know, delays with being able to learn or speak or any of those sorts of things. So it sounds hard, right? It sounds painful, it sounds a bit restrictive, and of course, you know, that energy, if we're aware that it's a heaviness and that everyone has it in some aspect of our lives. Some of us, especially if you have a lot of Capricorn or Aquarius in your chart, which Saturn rules, you will feel his presence all the time. The key to Saturn is this: you need patience, you need discipline, and you need to do things slowly. So if you have an aspiration, this is an area of your life that you can't wing it. You can't fake it. You can't do what everyone else is doing. You have to put the work in. So for instance, you know, if you did have that Saturn in the 5th house and you wanted to have kids, you would often have to go through the process of, you know, having health tests and medical tests, doing fertility testing, seeing different doctors, considering your options around adoption or fostering, or, you know, you would have a process. The thing about Saturn, what I love, is his rewards are, again, like Jupiter's, tangible. The rewards you get from doing your Saturn, as we say in astrology, are lifelong rewards. But it's not something that comes to you by luck. So where Jupiter is where you take one step and everything opens up, Saturn is where you gotta carry on through. You gotta follow through with what you believe in. So it will often appear to you in earlier life as a restriction or as something heavy, but it's something where you have a lesson. It will reward you. So people with Saturn in the 7th house tend to find their soulmate. It may not be, you know, in the first 30 years of their life, they might be 45, 50 by the time they find a soulmate. But when they do, this is someone they're with for the rest of their life. There is, there's unconditional love, there's loyalty, there's adventure, there's everything, because they've done the work up until then. So I don't ever want you to think, especially if you look online, Saturn can get a bit of a bad reputation. Saturn is heavy. He asks for responsibility. He asks for patience. You can't rush any of your Saturn experiences. But what you get back if you put in time and effort over a period of time and authenticity is you get the most incredible, long-lasting reward. So this is somewhere where you're meant to have something. The area of Saturn in life is a gift. It's like an inheritance, but it requires you working for it. So, yeah, it's an interesting one, you know, and if you have an aspiration in the area of life that your Saturn is in, it's something that you're better off doing over a longer period of time. So, you know, for example, if you had Saturn in the 9th house of travel and exploration and teaching and higher education and philosophy and all those sorts of things, and you really wanted to find enlightenment, you know, it's not going to be an eat, pray, love type of experience where you go off traveling for 4 months and, you know, you eat lots of pasta and meditate and then you find enlightenment. It would be the sort of thing where you would study something over a period of years, but by the end of it, you would be a guru. It would be something where you plan a pilgrimage that lasts for 6 months. You know, people that have Saturn in the 9th house tend to do sabbaticals, as in they take a full year off to do a thing that they work towards, whether it is traveling or whether it is a course of study or something like that. So Saturn is where you got to kind of approach it with a slowly approach, take it day by day, where you've got to have patience with yourself. Because the lesson of Saturn, where the moon represented our mothers, Saturn represents our fathers and how we father ourselves. So what the patriarchy or what our own fathers taught us about achievement and integrity and goals and worthiness. So if we were taught that we have to charm or cheat or scrounge or beg for things, we'll have lessons around that. It's around our deservingness as well. And Saturn is like the good father. So if you've had trouble with your father, you'll probably have a Saturn aspect, maybe Saturn Pluto, Saturn Mars. There might be something there if you've had difficulties with your father. Saturn in the 8th house especially, and Saturn in the 12th is another one as well. But Saturn himself is the energy of a good father. He wants you to succeed. This is where the universe is on your side. And they're like, you know, you have to do this work, but we're all here for you. So whatever area of life that is in your chart, you got to treat that area with patience. You got to treat it with respect. You know, think of a man that you admire that may not be your own father, but it might be Robin Williams, it might be Barack Obama, it might be Martin Luther King, it might be your granddad. And what would that man tell you about your goals? So that's what to think about in terms of Saturn in your chart. There are amazing rewards with Saturn, but you've got to put the work in. So that is Jupiter and Saturn, and they are kind of they're the heavyweights, and they kind of oppose each other because their way of functioning is so different. One is like, go in, spend the money, reach out to people, be generous, you know, and things will come back to you. Whereas Saturn is like, right, turn up on time, do the work, you know, iron your shirt, all that sort of thing. Show respect, be humble, eat the right vegetables. So their energies are completely different, but you see how they both lead to a different type of reward. So the downside of Saturn's excess and fun can be gambling, it can be wastefulness, it can be greed, it can be a lack of control. The downside of Saturn can be depression or heaviness or being too hard on ourselves, or issues around discipline. But both of them have such tangible rewards in our lives, especially with money and abundance and love and good relationships. So those are the two big planets I want you to think about this week. And I wanted to also talk to you about the asteroid Chiron. So Chiron is known as the wounded healer. He was a centaur, but centaurs were known for being very wild and very sexual and very rapacious. Chiron was a teacher. He was incredibly wild at heart, but he was wise. He was abandoned as a child. And he went on to teach Hercules. He went on to teach Apollo. He taught Poseidon. So he taught the gods their knowledge. So Chiron, and I wanted you all to look at Chiron in your charts because everyone who's on this course at this time is creative, has something to give, is on a particular life path, and that's why we've connected. Chiron is where you have wounding. You are the wounded healer. So this can be an area of our lives where we suffered or we felt pain in some aspect. And it's an area that we know intimately. And it's an area of life, I'm not going to say it's going to be painful throughout your life, but it's like a wound that never fully heals because Chiron was immortal. He was also shot with a fatal arrow in his Achilles. And that meant he couldn't die, but he lived his whole life in a fatal amount of pain. So he lived forever until he made a deal otherwise, but I don't want to go too much off on a tangent about horsemen characters here. But he was an immortal who had to live with a fatal pain. So how do you do that? You know pain intimately, and that's why he could teach all of these incredible gods and warriors how to fight, how to survive. He taught them poetry, he taught them lyrics, he taught them philosophy, because he had been there and experienced that. So where your Chiron is where you may have suffered, either in a past life or an earlier life, and it's an area that will always be sensitive to you. There is always going to be a trigger point in this area of your life. However, it's because you are a teacher in this area. Part of your life purpose has been to teach others about this area of your life. So this is an essential part of healing, that you don't overcome whatever that chironic issue is, but that you fully acknowledge and experience it, because that is where you can teach others. And so Chiron, interestingly, in the natal chart also represents we will always have a backup career, or there's always a plan B that we can fall back on. So if you have Chiron in the 5th house, you could always maybe work with children. You might have artistic work that you could make money from. If you have Chiron in the 6th house, you could always go back to nursing or caring or companionship, office work, working with animals, dog walking. It's that sort of area where there's always something to fall back on for emergency income, because he had a raft of abilities and tools. So that's a really interesting thing to think about if you always think, okay, what would be my plan B if I couldn't do my current job? Or as a sideline business as well. So all of these planets this week do impact our income and our different options around making money. So he is the wounded healer. He is the teacher. This is an area where you can teach people. So if this is what you want to do as your line of work, bring Chiron in. You know, like I said, your ascendant is about how you present that message, but Chiron is such an essential part of who you are and the message that you help other people to heal through. So Chiron is very, very interesting, and I want you to think about that one in terms of how can you use your Chiron? Can you use him in your work? Can you use him in your personal healing? Is there some part of that you haven't addressed? And also, is there something in the Chironic field in your natal chart that could be a source of extra income for you? So, Saturn, Jupiter, and Chiron, money, lessons, growth, how we help others. Like I said, these are starting to go into the outer planets. So this is where our personal self runs into the rest of the world and why we're here. So have a really good week. Have a good think about those. And if you need to have any questions, just let me know. Bye.